And now for your feature presentation, another entry in Tales from the Beyond.
One-way ticket. So we've got something a little different for you now. Something I feel I'm ready to talk about that I can't quite explain. The reason I've waited until now is because I had no evidence, no witnesses to confirm anything, and no means to explain what I was claiming. Until now. Someone else has come forward with a near identical experience. At their request, I will not divulge their name, but we here at Hill City Paranormal can vouch for their credibility. Throughout the year, we receive a number of requests from our listeners to investigate their unexplained paranormal encounters, and we try to check out every request we get. Sometimes there's evidence of something going on. Other times we're not so lucky. When we get an influx of requests, it's not uncommon for us to go out alone to a call out after initial checks have been made. This was one of those times. We had been receiving calls from various sources for a few months, sending in reports of a steam train being heard echoing throughout the hillside late at night, just off Holland's Mill, down by the old nursing home, rattling along the old track buried deep within the bedrock from a time long forgotten. Our most reliable source, a night orderly from the nursing home, had reportedly seen this mysterious locomotive a number of times, as well as heard it, so we decided they would be the best place for us to start our investigation. I chose to go with a friend of mine who offered to drive us there, as the others had a promising possession to look into up north that couldn't be put off another day. For the purpose of this, we will refer to my friend as Brad. That night, Brad rolled his flatbed truck round to my apartment just after sundown for us to load the recording equipment into before we set off. Along the way, I filled him in on the case, the history behind the place, and what had reportedly been seen. The train tracks around that area were used roughly in the 1800s as a thoroughway to the New River in southwestern Virginia. All passenger trains pass through this way with no notable instances of accidents occurring. Usually, when we are called to a paranormal occurrence, we can dig up some kind of trauma that's echoed through to present itself as an entity. But this time, it was different, which either meant it was going to end up as a no-show or something else entirely. Either way, I wasn't too optimistic we would come up with the desired result. As we got closer to the location, Brad became less engaged in the conversation and more focused on the road. Both hands gripping the wheel, his knuckles were white. Being an avid fan of the paranormal, Brad had always shown an interest in what we do, so when he offered to give me a ride, it came as no surprise. But what I didn't expect is when it came down to the crunch, his nerves would show so easily. We spent the next few minutes on lighter conversation, and I could see him visibly becoming more at ease, which was just as well, as that was when we rounded the corner into the parking lot where we were meeting our eyewitness. The orderly requested to stay anonymous, which was a common request. The fear of locals labeling them as whack jobs and unreliable was a common theme amongst people who approached us, so we agreed to their terms and asked them to start at the earliest occurrence. The orderly had been working at the nursing home now for several years. Loved the job and the people at the home. And for the first 2 years, nothing out of the ordinary happened. The first sighting came in his 3rd year. It was a cold February night. He'd stepped outside for a smoke, and that's when he saw it. The next part is a direct quote from him. "I can remember it like it was yesterday. I can still feel the chill through my bones as I stepped outside for a quick break and the crunch of the frost underneath my feet. It was a clear night, and thank God for me. Those few minutes the cold snap had eased up just enough for me to enjoy my break. If it was any other night, or even an hour earlier or later, I'd have only been out there for a minute or two max. The cold wind that whips up is something fierce, and you can barely catch your breath, let alone enjoy a smoke. But that night, it was looking good, so I took my time. I wish I hadn't. I just finished my first cigarette and tapped the box for the second when off in the distance I heard the faint sound of a whistle. With how late it was, and the time of year, it was rare to see signs of life, so a whistle really stood out. I paused, lighting up another smoke, and strained to hear for signs of it again. After a moment pause, it began again. This time, definitely closer. With it being such a quiet night, I could kind of guess the direction it was coming from, but for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what it was, you know? By the third whistle, that was even closer. I could make out what looked like the chimney of some kind of train, just over that way. The orderly gestured towards the tree line that obscured the abandoned tracks and led up to the hillside, blowing out smoke as it passed. I remember that night for two reasons. It was the first night I saw the ghost train, and it was the night Walt, one of the residents here, passed away. We let the orderly finish his stories of each time he saw the ghost train. I could tell that Brad, like myself, had made the connection that the train seemed to appear each night a resident from the nursing home had passed away, just by the look on his face. We let the orderly head back inside and turned to head back to the truck. After agreeing we had come to the same conclusion, we decided our next stop had to be the train tracks. Brad had the same look on his face as he did moments before we left the truck. I could tell this was a little too close to action for him, but I needed him, so we pushed on. I tried lightening the mood, but it was no use. I could tell the stories had gotten into his head. He seemed distant, unfocused. We were 2 roads away from the disused railway tunnel when it happened. I don't know if it was because Brad wasn't fully concentrating on the road, or that the driver of that semi-truck was just going too fast, but it was in the blink of an eye he crossed that junction at the same time as us, plowing into our side, sending us spiraling off the embankment. I began to black out as the truck came to a rest upside down. Brad was already unconscious, as the last bit of fight left me, and I gave in to the wariness and closed my eyes. I swear, I heard that whistle. I awoke in a daze, no longer upside down, no longer trapped inside the truck, and no longer in pain. In fact, truth be told, I don't recall being able to feel anything, except for the subtle feeling that I was moving forward. Leaning back against the seat I'd been sat in, I forced myself to sit up straight and open my eyes. It took a few seconds for my eyes to focus, but slowly, everything came into focus. The cabin I'd found myself in was empty of life, except for a couple sat at the front facing forward. I glanced to my side, and my heart jumped to my throat. Through the window, I could see a tree line burning as we sped by. We were on a train. As if timed perfectly, the door at the back of the cabin I'd not previously noticed snapped open, and in stepped the conductor. Taking in the sight before me, I suddenly felt lightheaded again. Although steady on his feet, the conductor approaching me had a large portion of his skull missing. Surely enough to render a normal person on the wrong side of critical. The conductor made a beeline straight for me and didn't stop until he was practically towering over me.
"Ticket, please,"
the conductor, with half his skull missing, asked. Where am I? Have you seen my friend?" I replied.
"Do you mean Brad?"
he said. "Yeah," I answered, slightly puzzled by his unexpected knowledge of my friend's name. "Where is he? Is he okay?"
"He's in good hands now. Do you have a ticket?"
I could sense frustration in his voice, so I checked my pockets for the ticket he asked for, but could find nothing. I just wanted to see Brad, to know he was okay. "I don't think I have one," I said to the conductor.
"Then in that case, I'm going to have to ask you to get off. It's not your time, it seems,"
the conductor said. And with that, I could feel my head getting heavy. My vision went fuzzy, and I stumbled back onto the seat from which I woke. As before, just as my eyelids felt too heavy to keep open, I fell asleep to the sound of a whistle. When I awoke, I was lay on the side of the road with EMTs rushing around us. Brad lay a few feet away with a paramedic attempting to resuscitate him. He was pronounced dead at the scene. As I said earlier, I can't quite explain what happened, nor do I have proof, but I can promise you this: God is my witness. What I've told you is as I remember. I visit that orderly occasionally and sit out on the porch of the nursing home having a smoke and a ketchup, hoping to hear that familiar whistle.
Be sure to check out our website at hillcityparanormal.com. And thank you for listening to Hill City Paranormal's Tales from the Beyond. Signing off.